individuals are doing the unnatural thing to the environment, you see that that is associated with doing unnatural things to themselves, and then that's associated with doing unnatural things to each other. And so homicide, constantly on the rise, where someone is literally abusing another in the most hostile way. And then when all of those things are active, then individuals lose desire for life themselves. Because as the environment, as they do certain things in the environment that's improper, the environment begins to feed them back. This is called the principle of karma. Every action produces a corresponding reaction. And then such weighted consciousness will cause individuals even to commit suicide. So everywhere on the planet, suicide is on the rise. So this is showing that there is a tremendous imbalance in how we are using some of the natural things that's available, how we are processing, because more and more facilities are there, but at the same time, those facilities are not really solving the real issues of life, are not really improving the quality of life, but causing us to engage more in trying to accumulate commodities. We are more of a take society. For instance, every 5 or 6 years, the amount of information available to humankind doubles. 90% of all scientists that have ever lived, ever existed, are living right now, today. But in spite of that, we see that there's more questions about the human condition, about the environment, about life, that are unresolved, more conflicts. So it shows that we are abusing so much that is available or misusing. It's not that things are not there for us to understand higher truthisms and to be able to live in such a way that we will be more natural, and being more natural means we'll be more loving. As we're more loving, we'll understand the actual source of love. People hear love, they only think of lust. When they hear about spirituality, they only think of sentimentalism. But love is something very deep. And to have strong love is just like now we have electricity because the current is on. So to have strong love, there must be a connection with the ultimate source of love. And therefore that source, of course, is God. We cannot genuinely be loving just based on how someone is responding to our senses and how we're responding to someone else's senses. We can simply appreciate a situation or appreciate someone based on what they do for us. And love has never been based on receivership, was never, a deep love has never been based on I love you if or conditional situations. But because we're so bombarded by the Hollywood conception of love, then we're thinking that love is a matter of simply how I please your senses, how you please my senses, and as soon as you're not pleasing my senses, then I have no desire to associate with you. But there's something far superior to that. And that, of course, is transcendental knowledge. See, we have a physical body, we have a subtle body, and we are the actual soul. But see, propaganda has caused us, and information processing has caused us to live a very mechanical life. We normally don't even have time to think very much about what is the purpose of life. Because the average person is running after just trying to pay their bills or trying to accelerate, as we have here in academic situations, and trying to acquire a degree with the hopes of being able to use that degree to be able to enjoy. But then we find, again, a lot of false propaganda. Just as there were so many scandals, the Watergate scandal and the Iran-Contra scandal, and now we're finding, or looking at so many different scandals that's happening now with our present president. Well, it's becoming a situation of commonplace. Whether it's scandals going on in Europe, whether it's scandals going on in Latin America, South America, or America, it's becoming practically the normative situation that people are seeing that they really cannot trust their leaders. They cannot trust the legislative, the executive, the judicial aspect of those things that supposedly there to protect them because of improper role models. It even happens in spiritual circles. People often use situations for their own self-centered or sovereign interests without understanding the ramifications, the implications that are involved. Because everything we do comes back to us. And according to what we put out, we have verse in Bhagavad Gita, very ancient book, one of the greatest philosophical texts on the entire world, with tremendous information about the human condition, our relationship to the Supreme, our relationship in terms of the science of service to the Lord. And it emphasizes in Sanskrit, we say, Yayatama prapajante tam shtareva pajama amamanavatate manushaparta sarvasha. That everyone is literally on the path of the Supreme Guardian. Whether we accept, admit, recognize, or try to deny, and as we involve ourselves in trying to surrender, that the Lord accommodates, rewards us, assists us accordingly. So that is most categorical. It's not that we can do something that is going unnoticed by the Supreme. It's not that we can do something that is unnatural and get natural reactions. We do something that is unnatural, we get unnatural or inauspicious types of happenings. And so we see all over the world that such inauspicious things is happening, which is showing us that our inputs are improper. As we change our inputs, then we get different types of results. I was just meeting, as a devotee was saying about Narayan, that I was in South Africa, first West Africa, and then South Africa. And I was meeting with the president of South Africa. We're having some discussions at the dinner table after the program was over. And one of the things I mentioned was in reference to scandals, corruption, in terms of what is happening all over the world with big leaders. And so I was discussing that just a week before. I had visited one of the West African countries, and there was a conference sponsored by the United Nations literally on corruption, on the African continent particularly. And in that particular discussion, it was revealed that in the last 11 months, that African presidents or heads of states had remitted over 20 billion, and that's the figure is in dollars, US dollars, to their personal bank accounts. Now, $20 billion in any part of the world is a lot of money. And $20 billion that should go for development, that should go for education, for health, for welfare. We're literally trying to improve the basic life of people so they can live more piously, and then, of course, from that, have a tendency to be more spiritual. So, such things were showing to a tremendous degree that all over the world, that leaders find ways to gain money, gain distinction, adorations, profits, etc., for themselves, denying the care of their constituents. In many places, leadership means now how I can become rich overnight. How I can say one thing and at the same time do something else. How I can make other people accountable, at the same time feel that I'm infallible or that the rules do not apply to me. And this is why almost every week you'll find in the news another scandal with someone who supposedly was caring for the people or having responsibility, who abused their responsibility. So until people understand the difference between this information processing, data collecting, the difference between just trying to acquire commodities and trying to gratify their senses and understanding about their higher self, such things will continue and will even increase. As people become more frustrated, instead of looking at other paradigms, they'll simply try to see how to find different combinations to do the same thing, and that will increase more lust, more exploitation, more abuse, more fragmentations. Just as you've noticed in the communist countries, in Russia, for instance. After the communist bloc situation changed, then so many underlying things began to become problems. And you'll see that all over the world. unless people are able to have a serious nucleus that is not something that is so transitory or relative, then as you take off some of the more grosser external coverings, then you will just unleash tremendous other things will begin to come out and will be a botheration. And then it happens in secular communities, spiritual communities, the same. Because you can hide behind institutions, you can hide behind governments, you can hide behind organizations, but there comes time when one can no longer hide. And what you have, what you possess, what you are, then that will have an effect on the environment. So one of the reasons more and more scandals are coming out is because people have been hiding. But now there's so lack of allegiances. You know, the CIA has its own campaign, the FBI has its own campaign, and the legislative branch has theirs, and the judicial branch has theirs, and basically nobody has allegiance to anyone. There were times when leaders would do all kinds of deviations, but then the media would not cover it. Or then various branches of the government would not touch it. But now, because of so much anarchy, and because of so much confusion, anxiety, fears, and phobias, that in many cases are quite sound, then people are acting more and more like what? Wild children. And that is very dangerous, especially in a place, for instance, like America, where 1/3 out of every person has a gun. Where in an average day in these school systems, about 150, 130,000 weapons are carried into the school systems. So we are a very combat-ready society. And if we think what has happened in other parts of the world is very unfortunate, imagine what will be the case when these kind of things begin to become a part of our environment, when people are so combat-oriented, combat-ready. So we're looking at a time now when massive waves of confusion are sweeping the planet, when heavy negative karma is unfolding. And therefore, an intelligent person does not want to be a product of the general karma. You know, now you see droughts, famines, earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, almost every few days somewhere. That is showing that the general karma of the planet at this time is very inauspicious. And if one does not rise above the normal patterns of society, person will be swept up by that karma. That is why it's very important to have some type of regulation in your life, where there is some austerity, some principles that you are following with regulation, because that will make you above or allow you to be in the world, but not of the world.